Are you ready to revolutionize your relationship with money? Welcome to the Finding Financial Freedom podcast with the Frugal Physician, where I, Dr. Disha Spath, will be your companion on this exciting adventure. Get ready to conquer debt, build wealth, and embrace a mindful spending lifestyle that will empower you to live life on your own terms. Pearson Ravitz's story begins with Dr. Stephanie Pearson, a passionate OB-GYN at the height of her career. But then, a shoulder injury struck during a precipitous delivery. Her dreams were shattered, leaving her unable to practice medicine. Determined to make a difference, Stephanie became an advocate for her peers, guiding them through the complex disability process. Alongside insurance expert Scott Ravitz, Stephanie founded Pearson Ravitz, a company determined to approach insurance differently. Together, they set their mission to educate and empower physicians to protect their most valuable asset, their income, and the most important people in their life, their family. Today, Pearson Ravitz serves the medical community in all 50 states. At Pearson Ravitz, they understand the unique concerns of physicians. Physician-founded and physician-focused, Pearson Ravitz builds human connections before they create quotes. Life can change in an instant. It's hard to imagine that a sudden illness or injury could leave you and your family in a devastating financial situation. But with a little planning and guidance, you can prepare for every possibility. Visit PearsonRavitz.com to schedule your consultation with a Pearson Ravitz advisor. Welcome to Finding Financial Freedom with the Frugal Physician podcast, where we explore the mechanics of building wealth specifically tailored for the medical professional. I'm your host, Dr. Disha Spath, and today we have a very special guest, Dr. Cory Fawcett, a retired general surgeon who has masterfully leveraged real estate investing to achieve financial independence early in his career. Author of the best-selling book, The Doctor's Guide to Real Estate Investing for Busy Professionals, Dr. Fawcett brings a wealth of knowledge and firsthand experience in managing a successful real estate portfolio while maintaining a full-time medical practice. His journey from managing 64 units to automating his real estate investments, allowing him and his wife to travel the world on passive income, is nothing short of inspiring. Today, he's here to share his insight on real estate investing as a powerful tool for financial freedom for busy medical professionals. So let's get started and dive into the world of real estate investing with Dr. Cory Fawcett. Welcome, Cory.
Hey, thanks for having me today.
I'm so glad that you are here today. Thank you so much for coming. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Life is really good. I'm really enjoying retirement. When I did retire, that is something I wasn't sure if I would be able to say. Would I enjoy not being a surgeon? I worried about that for a while. After a couple of years, I realized that was a dumb worry. I'm going to be fine.
You have many varied interests, from music to bicycle racing and so on and so forth. I'm sure you have lots of stuff to fill your time, and I follow your family's travels, and you're all over the place.
I thought I would have so much free time when I retired that I would catch up, around the house. And I've discovered that the state of caught up doesn't exist. There's no such place. It doesn't matter if you're working or you're retired, you never catch up. When I retired, I started traveling and I still wasn't home to catch up on anything.
Well, it's good. I'm glad I'm not the only one feeling overwhelmed by laundry all the time.
It never ends. My wife says that, it just never ends.
Yeah, especially when you're traveling. I feel like you have to specify a day just to get caught up on the laundry and get back into real life again. Let's dive into your journey. You retired quite early, right? How old were you when you retired?
Well, I was 51 when I left my practice. I did a part-time locums work for 3 years, kind of allowed me to kind of ramp down things because I was really worried about going from a full-time practice to nothing and how that would affect me. And I wanted to work part-time, but my partners didn't want a part-time surgeon in the group. So they said no. And I said, well, then I'll have to retire. And instead I did the locums, working 2 weeks a month for 3 years. And then at age 54, I walked out of the hospital for the very last time.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your journey in medicine and what led you to invest in real estate and how that complemented your medical career and then eventually your early exit?
Well, the whole real estate thing goes way back before medicine. My grandmother's oldest grandson, and she owned a lot of rental real estate. Grandma and Grandpa would bring me along with them to help out when we were doing stuff. So I learned a lot during those years about how to take care of property, how to fix things. I put on a new roof and did some new plumbing and electrical stuff. And so I learned all these things about real estate. And I noticed when my grandfather died and my grandmother was fairly young, she didn't need to get a job. He had a job, he was working, and they were building their real estate portfolio. And he passes away, his job goes away, but grandma didn't need to have a job because she had income coming in from that real estate. And that kind of caught my eye as a kid that, hey, that's pretty good. Grandma doesn't have to work. And grandma was traveling around and doing things. And she wasn't wealthy, but she didn't have to work. She could if she wanted to. And I was the only person in the family to follow in her footsteps. No one else wanted to do that.
And how old was she at the time when your grandfather died?
About 50.
She had quite a lot of years left in front of her.
Yeah, she died in her 90s. Never got another job. But everybody else said stuff like, oh, she's a slumlord. She's got all these houses and I don't want to do that. It's so much work. I don't want to fix a toilet on Thanksgiving. And, all of the things that you hear about why you should never be involved in real estate. But I didn't see any of that stuff. So I always knew I wanted to get into real estate. I just didn't know when it would happen. So when I became a surgeon, we started the whole process and my wife convinced me that we should get out of debt. Thus my book on eliminating debt. We went through a journey to get out of debt. And when we finished that journey, we found ourselves with $10,000 a month that used to be going to debt. And we said, what are we going to do with that? That's a good problem to have. It happens every time you get debt free, suddenly you don't have any payments to make. And where's all that money going to go? And that's when we decided in 2001 that we should begin investing in real estate. And that's what we would do with the money that used to pay our debts. And so we set out to begin our real estate journey. I had been in practice for 8 years at that time. And I got a course on real estate and read a couple of books. This was before the internet. And so you couldn't really just get on a blog. It was books. And so read a couple of books, figured out what I needed to do. And I went out and bought my first piece of real estate. It was a 31 unit apartment complex for over $1 million. And I bought it with no money down and got cash back at closing, just like the book said I should do.
Wait. Back up. You went from, first of all, a very financially sound position. You paid off all your debt, including your mortgage. Am I correct?
Yep, including the mortgage, yes.
Yeah, so you had a ton of cash flow, but, most people I know, buy like a single family to get their feet wet before they jump into a 31 unit multifamily apartment complex. How did this happen? And how did you get cash back at closing?
Okay, so the course that I followed the directions from actually recommended by a single family homes because you're familiar with single family homes. You own one. You might live in one. You've probably bought 1 or 2 or 3 of them in your life. So you're familiar and they're not scary. And quite frankly, what I find is everybody thinks real estate investing is scary until they buy their first one. Once they do it once, then they realize, well, that was easy. And then they can just go buying some more. Well, I kind of already had my feet wet watching my grandmother and helping her out. And so I kind of was familiar with what it takes to take care of the places. And frankly, it's just as much work to take care of one apartment complex as it is to take care of one house. It's still one thing. Just because there's 31 renters in that place doesn't really make it more complex. Instead of depositing one rent check, you deposit 31 rent checks. But you still have one garbage bill. You still have one water bill. You still go fix stuff when somebody says something doesn't work. So it's not really more scary. It seems like it. But the reality is it's not really different to buy a single family home or to buy a multifamily home. It's the same move. And you're going to go through the same escrow and you're going to go through the same offer. Everything is the same. So if it's all the same anyway, go big. So why should I just start with one and then get one more? I could buy 31 right now. And the course I took was on no money down real estate purchases. Basically, that's just a way to finance your real estate. That's the only thing that's different about no money down deals is how you finance it. And so I learned how that works. How do you do that with no money down? Okay, I got it. I'll do that. I did it. And I went to make the offer, and my realtor says, they're not going to take that. That's never going to work. We can't make that offer. And I said, well, I'm going to make that offer, and I want you to set it up. So I personally make the offer to the owner in person. I'm not handing you the offer and you're going to give it to his guy and he's going to give it to the owner and the owner's going to look at it. And because this is a different kind of a deal, it's not just a straightforward offer. And he says, they're not going to take it. I said, okay, let's do it anyway. So we made the offer that day, and I gave the guy everything he asked for because I interviewed him. And the whole story about this purchase is actually in the book, a whole chapter on just this one purchase to show you how to do all this stuff. But I interviewed him. I knew exactly what he wanted. I knew what he was going to do with the money. I knew what was going to happen. So I gave him everything he asked for, except the price was different. And it was very hard for anybody to turn down everything they asked for. He thought that this price was what would get him everything he asked for, but I gave him everything he asked for at this price. And I financed it with 105% financing. And that means that when they finally closed everything up, I had overfinanced it, and then they give you a check back at closing. So when the deal was completely done, I took over the apartment complex and they paid me a check.
Can you give me a little Cliff Note version? I know you have it all laid out in the book, but give us a little Cliff Note version of exactly how you made this deal happen, like roundabout numbers.
Let me give you an easier one so that it's easy to see how a no money down deal works. Let's say you're going to buy a single family home for $100,000 and the owner owns it outright. There's no mortgage on it. The owner is going to be moving in, live there forever, and is going to move into an assisted living place, and they want some money coming in. You talk them into owner financing, okay? And let's say they're going to finance it at 60%. They want 40% down for owner financing. That's what they want. So they're going to carry the mortgage for $60,000. So I need another $40,000. And I could go to my home equity loan and pull out $40,000 and give it to him. And there's $100,000, 40 from a home equity loan, 60 from the owner. That's a no money down deal. I didn't have to reach into my pocket and get any money. I didn't need any cash. I borrowed all of it. Now, from my end of the deal, you see a no money down deal, and I have 2 loans that the house needs to support. From his end of the deal, he doesn't even know that that was a no money down deal. He knows he got $40,000 down and he's carrying a $60,000 note. So that is how a no money down deal works. Basically, you have the main mortgage, and then you're going to figure out a way to borrow the down payment. The kicker is that the house has to support with its income both loans. You can't have a negative cash flow.
So now we're getting into cash flow and exactly how real estate works. As we know, and we've talked about before in this podcast, the cash flow on a rental property, you have to make sure that it's actually positive after taking into account all the borrowing costs and also all the maintenance costs and incidentals and the big things that might come up, like fixing a roof or replacing a roof, or basically what we call CapEx. So can you walk us through how you would calculate that on such a large apartment complex?
First thing you need to know is it isn't any different than a single family home. They are identical because they are the same thing. It's a place where somebody lives. So every place that somebody lives has all the same expenses associated with it. I have a cash flow chart that I use in the book reproduced. It's a cash flow chart. And what I have done is listed all of the things that could be an expense in this. Because when you're figuring out the cash flow, the biggest mistake people make is they leave things out. It has this great cash flow, but you left out the fact that you owe taxes every year for it. Oh, well, that makes it a negative cash flow. If you miss a bunch of expenses, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. I made a list of all of the kinds of expenses that you could have. And, it says swimming pool costs. Well, if it doesn't have a swimming pool, that's zero. But it reminds you to think about the swimming pool if there's a swimming pool there. You got to take your income that the property is going to make. That's the rent that comes in. You could make income off of other things besides rent. Some of my places have coin-op laundries in them. I make a bunch of quarters every month. You could be renting garages as well. But whatever the income is, you total all of the income. And then you got to take every one of those expenses that this property is going to have. And it doesn't matter if it's a 31 unit place or if it's a 1 unit place, it's the same process. Take all of the expenses, add them up. In that expense has to be your financing. I start out, I don't include the financing in when I'm beginning. So what I do is I've got this much income coming in, all of the expenses listed. How much does that leave me? Whatever that leaves me, that's how much I can spend financing the thing. So it doesn't matter how much I pay for the place, as long as the payments stay under that number. If I can keep the payments under that number, whether it's 1 loan, 2 loans, 3 loans, however many loans I take, they got to add up to less than that number because that's all I got to work with. And that number is actually called your net operating income. It's the income minus the expenses without mortgages in it. And your net operating income is the money you have available to finance the place. So if you paid 100% down, you didn't finance it at all, the net operating income is your income off of the property. So when you add the financing back in, you better be left over with some cash. That would be a positive cash flow. Imagine coming to me and say, hey, Dr. Fawcett, I got this really great deal. I'm going to buy this investment and I only have to put an additional $1,000 a month in to keep it. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, you said this was an investment. Isn't an investment supposed to put money in your pocket? And you're saying it's going to only cost you $1,000 a month? Yeah, but it's going to appreciate and I'm going to get some tax benefits. And yeah, but you're going to lose money every month on this investment, right? And you know that when you start. If that's the case, that's called the negative cash flow. You don't want to have anything to do with that because that's not actually an investment. If you ask anybody what an investment is, they're going to say, well, it's something that you buy that makes you money. Well, a negative cash flow property isn't that. So you want to make sure that when you work the cash flow out, that it all comes out so that you're putting money. So with the big 31 unit place I had, we did all of the work for it. When we first bought it, we said, for 1 year, we're going to do everything ourselves. We're not hiring out anything unless I don't know how to do it. So that by the end of the year, we fully understand everything about how this place works. Then we would farm out all the pieces. And it was basically, we're going to be an internship for 1 year on our property. So knowing we were doing the work, and that year with us doing the work, the property had a cash flow of $22,000 for the first year. And then each year it began to climb. It was positive, but we were working it. Probably if we hired everything out, it would have been negative, but we went into it knowing we were working it and that we're paying down the down payment money as time goes by. Over time, we've paid off the down payment money and we began hiring people to do the different parts of taking care of the thing. And pretty soon we have had our internship. We know how it all works, but now we have other people doing all of the pieces and not us. You could totally skip that internship part and we could have bought the place and then handed it over right away to a property management company. And then we could have just let them send us the checks. We probably couldn't have 100% financed it if we did that. We would have had to have some down payment money to keep it with a positive cash flow. That's kind of the way it works. Here's the big problem people run into. They look at the real estate salesman's numbers and it says, look, it's a positive cash flow. It's got this cap rate. And then when you say, show me the numbers, they left out a whole bunch of stuff. They only counted the payment and the taxes and the insurance, and that's it. They might put in a vacancy factor, and then they left everything else out. And they said, see, it's a positive cash flow. And it was like, never use their calculations. When you find a place, you make your own. Don't use the salesman's statement that is making money if you buy it, because they always leave stuff out to make it look better. So be careful about that.
Yeah, we experienced that recently looking for a short-term rental. On the front end, the numbers looked great, but when we actually got all the numbers and put them into our spreadsheet, we discovered we'd be losing $1,000 a month owning this place. And even though it might appreciate in the in the future, we were like, we actually backed out during due diligence because we finally got the numbers from all the contractors. And that's not something I've ever done, but you need to know when to cut your losses, and hopefully it's before you even start.
And you want to make sure that your offer has in it an out clause where you get to do your due diligence. And then if you find out that things are not as they said, my best example of that is my son, when he first got out of college, wanted to buy a business. And we looked at this ice cream shop. And the ice cream shop, basically, it said it makes $40,000 a year cash flow. So I get to the ice cream shop and we're sitting there having our ice cream, talking to the owner, and I'm looking around the shop. And there's 3 employees, and I'm looking and thinking that that's the lowest number you could have, was 3 employees. And then I looked at the guy and said, so you're telling me that my son could buy this thing and he could make a living owning it? And the guy says, well, when I said that it makes $40,000, it's like there's $40,000 worth of profit to pay your employees. And so if you do all the work, you make $40,000, And I'm looking around thinking, it takes at least 3 people to run this place. Where's my son's profit? How much profit did you make last year? And he said, well, I've never made any profit off the business. It's lost money every year. I said, then why did you tell us that it makes $40,000 a year? And his answer was, because if I told you it lost money, no one would ever look at
it. Yeah. Well, you often don't get the chance to talk to the actual owner of the real estate investment until you get to the closing table. So if you can have this conversation on the front end, I mean, how valuable is that?
I always demand that conversation.
That's very smart.
Especially if that person owned it for a long time. So for instance, one of the places I bought, the actual owner died and gave it to his kids, and the kids were selling it. So having a face-to-face conversation with those kids is probably useless. But if the owner was still there and he had taken care of this place for 30 years, I want to talk to him before I buy his property.
And what do you ask him?
I want to know why he's selling it. What's he going to do with the money? How has it been? What kind of trouble has he had with it? Where's the water shut off at? And we start with the things like that. Well, where does the water shut off at? When was the last time you put a roof on? And the reason that I did so well with that first purchase is because I asked these questions about what you're going to do with the money. What are you going to do now that you're going to sell? Are you going to 1031 exchange it? Because it changes my offer knowing what they're going to do. And the first guy, what he wanted to do was sell the thing and use the cash from it to buy a boat and pay off his house and sail around the world on the rest of the profits. That's what he was planning on doing. And I asked him about his boat. Tell me about your boat. Of course, he loved to tell me about his boat, and how much do you still owe on your house? And so I had all this information. So when I made the offer, number one, and this is how I made the offer, I actually wrote it on the board. I didn't say I'm going to give you this much money. I said, I'm going to give you this much money, which will buy that boat that you told me you wanted. I'm going to give you this much money that will pay off the house. Here's the payoff amount. I'm going to give you an extra $20,000 for the stuff your boat needs that you didn't know it needs because you've never sailed around the world yet. So there's going to be stuff you forgot and you didn't know. So here's some extra cash because you're going to need it for that. And the rest of the money, I want you to carry as a note, and I'm going to deposit $5,600 a month into your account right here. And wherever you are when you sail around the world, you can just go up to an ATM machine and get your money in whatever currency that you currently are at. That was exactly what he wants. Buy a boat, pay off my house, have enough money to cruise the world, and no worries. If I didn't know those things, he wanted $1.3 million. If I had just given him the offer, my offer was 1.15, $150,000 less than he was asking. If I just said, I'm going to give you 1.15 for it, he would have said no. But when I said, I'm going to give you your boat, pay off your house, give you some spending money, and take care of your cash flow for the rest of your life.
Well, that sounds like a good deal.
And I didn't even add up the numbers. I just said, those are what I'm giving you. What do you think? And he had to get a calculator out to see how much was the offer. It was 1.15 million when it came down to it. But the reality was it was everything he wanted. He took the offer. And my realtor said, if I'd have known he'd take that offer, I'd have bought the property.
If you read any negotiation book, that's exactly the heart of it. Both sides have to get exactly what they want. And, you shouldn't try to meet in the middle. You should try to make it work for both sides. And that's a perfect example of that.
This is a good segue to say the reason that my book says real estate investing for busy professionals is because there's a lot of people that talk about real estate and teach about real estate, but it won't fit into the lifestyle of a busy professional. If you hear somebody say something like, oh, well, you have to make 100 offers to get one to stick. So basically they're lowballing everything, trying to get a great deal. I'm a full-time surgeon. I can't be out there making 100 offers to buy my first piece of property. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
What I did, I told my realtor, this is what I want. Here are the criteria. Go find it for me. He went out, and a few weeks later, he says, I got one. And it was this 31-unit place. I checked it out. Yep, I like it. Let's do it. And we bought it. One offer, one purchase.
One conversation.
One conversation, one time through escrow, I own the place. It would have been stupid for me to set myself up so that I'm trying to lowball all the time and I have to do this 100 times before I can get something. I did it once. I made him a fair, good offer that I thought he wouldn't turn down, and it would work for me. And after that, I sent my realtor out, find me another one. The reality is that when you're looking at multifamily homes, there's not that many of them to see. Not like single family homes, there's thousands of them, but multifamily, there's not that many. They just pop up here and there. So he actually showed me about 2 or 3 places a year to look at. And some of them I would look at and say, no, I don't want to buy that one. But I probably averaged, I'm not totally sure about this, but probably like 90% acceptance of my offers. I only made an offer about once a year and only had to look at 2 or 3 places a year. And these people who are saying you got to do 100 places to get a deal, that just won't work for busy professionals. You got to play the game smart. You don't have time to mess around. You have somebody else find the unit for you that matches your criteria and make a good offer and put it in your pocket and move on. That's what passive income is all about. Making 100 offers, that's not passive income. Make one offer, put it in your pocket, and move on and never look back. And the stuff I buy, I still own today. I don't have any intention of selling any of it. My kids are going to inherit it. That's passive income. If you're having to redo it every couple of years because you're going to do another 1031 exchange and then do another one, and it's like you just have another job. If your real estate feels like a second job, you're doing it wrong.
And now, a word from our sponsor. In a world where the right connection can mean the difference between a community thriving or just surviving, Practice Link stands as the beacon of hope. Since 1994, they've been the bridge between job-seeking physicians and the communities that need them the most. With over 5,000 health systems, hospitals, and private practices connected to thousands of opportunities, they are more than just a job board. They are a lifeline. Practice Link, because where you practice matters, not just to you, but to everyone you touch. Your next chapter starts here. Visit practicelink.com/thefrugalphysician. You guys went through this whole journey of paying off debt. And then for the first deal, you took out a HELOC on your primary home.
I just gave you it as an example because people understand what a HELOC is and they can just walk in and get some cash with that. So I did not take a HELOC. I don't recommend anybody actually use a HELOC for buying real estate investments because I don't think you should put your personal residence at risk for an investment.
Agreed.
I think your personal house needs to be safe. And if something goes wrong and you lost the rental, so what? That's okay. But if something goes wrong and you lose your house, that's not good.
Right.
So I am not an advocate of using a HELOC, but it's an easy to understand example I used.
So how did you finance the down payment, or did you finance the down payment for your first property?
That one was a combination of things. I got a signature loan from the bank. I'm a doctor. I make a lot of money. They'll just give me money. Walked in and says, hey, I want to borrow some money. How much will you loan me? He said, I think it was $180,000. We'd give you $180,000 just by signing this piece of paper. I got that. The realtor who works for me is a real estate investor. He took all of his profit from the sale of the unit and loaned it back to me as a mortgage. My grandmother put some in there. She was looking to get some interest on some money. And so she put some in there. And I think there was one other source, but those things added up to, it was multiple loans, small loans that added up to the down payment. And so the beauty of that is if you got 4 loans, I can just pay this one off right now. My cash flow just got better. And then I work on this one, like the snowball method. And then my cash flow just got better. And then my cash flow just got better. And so I could pay them off, one at a time. And each time I paid one off, my cash flow got better. That worked that way.
My question to you is, how did you make the leap or the mental turn from going on a debt snowball and paying off all of your debt, then to taking out a whole bunch of more debt? How did you convince your wife and yourself that this was a good thing to do?
I considered them different debt. Okay. The debt that we paid off was debt that I had to pay. I had to work for the money, pay taxes on the money, then use that money to pay the debt with. The debt on a rental real estate, the tenant is paying that one off, not me. So if I've done the cash flow right and I'm not having to fork over $1,000 a month, so it's actually an investment and it's paying me money, then the tenants are actually paying off that debt. I don't have to work more hours to get that paid off. I had to work more to pay off my house. I had to work more to pay off my motorhome, but I don't have to work more to pay off the real estate because the investment is paying that off. I don't go with the notion that there's any such thing as good debt or bad debt. There's no such thing as good debt. I think all debt is a burden. And what you have to do is decide, is it worth the burden I'm about to have? It's not worth the burden to borrow money to buy a car because I have to go to work to pay that baby off. It was worth the burden to borrow money to buy an income producing property because when I borrow that money, I'm actually going to be putting money into my pocket from that. What our plan was, I lived off of my doctor income. And so all the money that my real estate made went towards paying down the debt. So that first $22,000 that year in profit, I paid off some of that down payment money, not counting the fact that some of it was getting paid off each month with the monthly payment on any debt that we had. So it was slowly coming down, but then I could throw that extra 22,000, like the next year, I think I made 30,000 and that money went directly to paying off debt. So that our plan was, as long as we don't need the money, all the money gets reinvested back into the real estate. So for the first 14 years or something, we didn't take any profits out of our real estate. All of it went to paying off debt and getting us into the position to where our cash flow was now high enough, because every time you pay off a debt, your cash flow goes up. Our cash flow was now high enough to support our lifestyle. And once that happens, you don't have to work. You can work if you want to, but you don't have to. You could retire at any time. And that's how we used our real estate. We paid off loans as we went. And eventually, when I retired and I stopped having money coming in from my medical practice, then we started not paying extra on debts and using the money to travel.
And then you're going to pass it on to your kids when you pass, God forbid, and they're going to get a step up in basis. And then they can sell that property if they like, or they can just take the profit of the appreciation and invest it elsewhere.
Or they can just keep spending the cash flow forever, which is what I expect they will do because my kids also now are real estate investors. My kids are 30 and 32 this year, and between them, they own 5 paid off houses.
Amazing.
I expect they would inherit it and they'll just keep running it. I don't see them selling it because if you sell it, you have to do something with that. If you keep it, you just keep spending the money. It's passive income as long as you have it. Once you sell it, It may or may not be passive income, depending on what you do with the proceeds from what you got. And I want passive income.
So speaking of passive income, initially though, when you invested in this place, it was pretty active the first year, like you said. How did you balance that with a full-time medical career working as a surgeon?
Even totally active wasn't that many hours of work. We automated a bunch of stuff right from the start. And when you do that, it saves a ton of time. For example, a refrigerator goes out. Okay, refrigerator dies. That's pretty urgent. They need a new refrigerator pretty quickly. The way our society is, you can't really not have a refrigerator. You have to act on that. So if you were the typical person who bought that place, you would say, okay, I'll take care of it after work. And you'll run over there and you'll check the refrigerator out. Yeah, it's dead. It's not the breaker. It's not the switch. The refrigerator's dead. And then you'll go to Home Depot and buy whatever refrigerator's on sale. And then you'll come back and you'll haul it up 2 flights of stairs to get it to there. And you bring the other one down and, it's late at night. So tomorrow you'll have to go to the dump to get rid of that. You're doing all that stuff. That isn't how we did it. I went right away to an appliance store in town and I picked out refrigerator, stove, dishwasher, everything that they had in there that I would need. I gave them my credit card number. And when somebody had a refrigerator went out, I just called the appliance store and says, hey, my apartment on D Street, number 26, this is the person's name. Here's their phone number. Refrigerator doesn't work. Can you take care of it? And they said, yeah, thanks. That's it. I'm done.
Wow. And they would just go in?
They would go in. They have fix or replace orders. They would go check it out. Is it something that can just be fixed? There's a part that broke and they can just do a quick repair. If not, they've already picked out the refrigerator and they already have my credit card number. And so they just swap them out. They'll dispose of it. And the next thing that happens, I make the one phone call to them. The next thing that happens is we open a piece of mail that shows my credit card receipt for a refrigerator. Why do I have to go do all that stuff? Why do I have to run over to Home Depot and pick up a refrigerator? I'm a busy surgeon. I shouldn't be doing that. There are people who will do that. And the appliance repair guy, he'll do it for free. That's what they do. If he knows he has all of my business, and one of the things they told me is during COVID, when everything kind of went south, he said to me, I just wanted you to know that your business single-handedly kept us open. He had all of my 64 units to take care of. And there was enough turnover in appliances with 64 units. That's over 200 appliances. That was enough to just keep their door open. When you're doing a relationship with someone like that, they're going to help you and they're going to make sure things go well. And doctors that own real estate, imagine running your own office and you answered the telephones and you put the people in the room and you took their blood pressure and you called the insurance company for the prior authorization and you called the hospital and scheduled. If you had to do all that stuff, you couldn't see enough people to keep your doors open. You have people that take care of those things. And when you buy a piece of real estate, you should treat it just like your office. You only do the part that needs to be you. I didn't need to move that refrigerator. There's a guy who will do that for free if I always buy the refrigerators from them. We set up that kind of stuff. We went to the flooring company. We got a carpet picked out. We had a vinyl picked out. And I called a plumber, and I've got a plumber. He's got my number and my credit card, and I've got an electrician. I got all these guys that do this stuff for a living. And all I had to do while I was managing the place was call them and say, hey, the water heater needs replaced at number 22. Could you take care of it? Yeah, thanks. Never hear about it again. They go fix it. That's when we were taking care of it. Later, I hired a guy to do all the maintenance work. I'm not even getting the phone call about the refrigerator. Phone call goes to the maintenance guy. He checks the refrigerator out and then he calls the guy and says, hey, go fix this refrigerator. And he's done because he does all of the maintenance. That's the little things that he can take care of. And if it's a big thing, then he calls one of those guys and says, hey, If the toilet flapper and the thing, we got a room with all the parts in it that you use a lot, he'd just go in the room, grab a flapper, and he'd go put it in. But if it was something big, he would call the plumber. I had him do it the same way I was doing it. Do the little things that you can and then call out the big stuff. When I did that, when I had a maintenance guy and a yard guy, my amount of work dropped to about 10 hours a month. And I could have managed it on less than 10 hours a month, but there was a couple of things that I kind of had fun doing, and I kept those as like a hobby. I really liked meeting all the tenants and picking who was going to live in my place. I kept that part for me to do. I didn't hire that out. I enjoyed the people part. It's part of why I was in medicine. I liked the patient interaction. I liked that at the apartment too. So I could have farmed that out. Maybe I would have had an hour a month to manage 64 units.
Well, it sounds like you set up all the right systems, really knew what you were doing. And it sounds like the utility of scale, the number of units you had, you were able to leverage that to build these very important connections with the appliance stores and all the maintenance people so that you could make sure that you gave them all your business, and that actually counted for something for them. They kept them open through COVID.
But you can start with just one and you tell them, hey, I'm getting into real estate investing. As I buy a unit, I'd like you to take care of it for me. They like that because they know, if they're the carpet people, they know they're going to get a lot of carpet business out of you. And, every time my maintenance guy was turning a place over, this carpet needs replacing, he just puts one call into the carpet guy and says, carpet this place, and they take care of it. It can be simple. People make it more complex than it really is. And I think that's what scares people away from real estate. Frankly, if you can figure out the Krebs cycle, this is easy.
So tell us about your life now. What are you doing as far as now that you are retired and you have all the time in the world and you're benefiting from your real estate investments as well as your other real estate portfolio, I'm sure. What are you doing to fill your time now?
Initially, we traveled a lot. Just before COVID, my wife and I walked across Spain with our backpacks on the Camino de Santiago, 450-mile jaunt. Take your backpack and walk for 450 miles. We went on lots of cruises. We saw a couple of dozen countries right after I retired. And then COVID hit and we stopped traveling. We were talking earlier, I don't know if we were recording already or not, but when we were traveling so much, we never really had time to do anything at home. We would just be home long enough to wash the laundry, repack for the next thing and take off. And I would say, oh, this thing needs to be fixed at the house, but I'll fix that next time. And then I'd leave. And then the next time I get there and we're doing the same thing. And there's another thing that needs fixing. And all this stuff piled up around the house that we weren't doing because we were traveling. That's one of the downsides of traveling all the time. And so when COVID hit, here's my chance to fix all that stuff around the house I haven't been doing. And so I spent the next time fixing up the house, getting things ready. We basically redid the whole house. We've been in this house for 27 years. And so we redid everything. Then as things are opening back up again, I had my first grandchild.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Thanks. My desire to travel around the world lessened. Now we actually take care of our grandkids 2 days a week during the school year. Mom works part-time in the school district. And so we have the kids every Thursday and Friday, except in April, my son, he's changing to a different career and he's doing some training right now for that. When that training finishes, then he needs to apply for a job and he realizes he's going to have this window. And he says, Dad, how about we ride our bikes across America before I get the other job? So in April, my son and I, and my brother-in-law is going to join us. We are going to ride our bikes from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean across America. And that's going to be a big adventure that if you follow my page, my Financial Success MD Facebook page, I'm going to be doing a little video every day about where we are and what we're doing on this 2-month bike trip across America. That's our current big adventure. And then I'm going to come up to visit you. Right after that, we're going to spend a month up in the New England area and 3 weeks of timeshares and 1 week of a cruise. So that's basically going to take us for the next, that'll be 3 months. So that's what life looks like now.
Life sounds amazing. Wow. What an adventure with your son. And I know that you already ride a lot. So you have the stamina built up to do such a long ride. And I'm sure it's going to be taxing, but then you'll be up here in New England. And I can't wait to have a piano jam sesh with you when you come up and have you and your wife over for dinner. That'll be lovely.
That's something else we started doing was I started playing music again. When I was in medical school, I actually recorded an album. I played in a rock band before I went to medical school. And then I wrote music and I recorded an album in medical school. And I decided I can't do this. I either have to be a full-time medicine or full-time music. I can't be part-time each at that stage of my life. And so I said I'd come back to music someday. So I played music all along the way. I'm a worship leader at church and I did spot things here in town, but I started working up a piano bar act to do, and I'm just ready to pull the trigger at any time, but stuff keeps coming up and I don't pull the trigger, but I'm playing again. And that's been a lot of fun.
You know, the musician lifestyle and the late night gigs just don't go along with medicine. I totally, I feel your pain because I did the same thing. And I'm finally starting to get back into music and I'm not performing anywhere and I don't really. Well, I guess I am performing for the nuns at the convent that I work at actually this week. I need to get my chops up for that. But that's what I do, now. But one day, when I'm retired, I'd love to just perform and be able to stay up late at night with all the other cats and, jam.
Yeah. We did some, one-off things. Like somebody once approached me and said, hey, could you do a sock hop 50s music for our elder group at the YMCA? Because, grew up in the 50s and they'd love to do that. And so I pulled together a bunch of other professionals who played different instruments. And I think for that one, I played the guitar, played the electric guitar and sing lead for that band. And we set up this sock hop and we did this show for these guys and it was a lot of fun. And then they gave us a check. I didn't know we were going to get a check. And I said, well, just put it back in your thing because none of us need to get paid tonight. It was just for fun. And then she said, yeah, well, can you do it again next year? And we were all saying, no. If you knew how much time it took for us to prep to do one concert, you couldn't pay us enough to do that on a regular basis. We got real jobs to do. And we just did it for fun. All of us played instruments, but we didn't get to do those things like we used to. I used to play in a rock band. I mean, my band got to play for the Vice President of the United States one day. It was a lot of fun and great stuff, but it takes a lot of time. So now it's kind of a hobby, and it was a hobby for each of us. And we had a ball playing the sock hop, but we couldn't really keep doing that because we got jobs and families and stuff, but it was fun.
And now you've created the freedom for yourself through your real estate empire. And now you can give back to those passions that you had to put on the back burner. I'm so thankful that you came on our podcast today to share your wisdom and really, help us overcome our fear, help me overcome my fear of a multi-family investing. Are there any last bits of wisdom you'd like to leave with our listeners today?
Patience. Almost everybody who's out there trying to teach people about real estate are in a hurry. You got to own something in 20 days. It's like, be patient and buy the right something that you'll have for a long time. If you get in a hurry, you're going to end up making a mistake. You're going to buy stuff that you didn't really want, and you're going to wish you didn't have that. So I think when it comes to being, especially starting out as a real estate investor, be patient and get the right one when it comes along. And don't just try and get something because you want to be a real estate investor right now. It'll come. I only bought one deal a year for 5 years, and I never bought another one. It took care of me for the rest of my life and my kids' life and probably my grandkids' life. 5 purchases in, I think it was 6 years, 5 purchases in 6 years. So just be patient and you will end up with a great deal. People forget about that. Took you a long time to become a doctor. Don't think you're going to be some real estate mogul overnight.
And there's no real need to stick to some random arbitrary number like one property a year that someone else sets. A lot of people will talk about one property a year is the magic formula. I mean, you did it one property a year, but you bought huge multi-unit investments.
I bought big units. I bought a 31 an 8, a 4, a 12, and a 9. Something like that was what I had. And then I was hunting the next deal, and I had one like, oh, I got this one. And my wife says, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm getting the next one. She says, why? You've already crossed the finish line of what we said we needed with real estate. So why are you still buying more real estate? And I looked at it and realized, you're right. We have enough real estate now to take care of us for the rest of our life. We don't have to look for any more. And that's another thing I'd recommend is make sure that you know what your finish line is. Otherwise, you're just going to keep buying and buying and buying and buying. And at some point, you're wasting your time because you should be out enjoying life, not looking for a piece of real estate because you already own enough of it. In one of my books, there's a quote, I think it's from J. Paul Getty, that's somebody asked him when he was the richest guy in the world, how much is enough? And he said, just a little bit more. And you do not want to run your real estate business that way. You do not. You want to set up what your finish line is, be patient, and work your way to the finish line. Remember the tortoise and the hare story. And you don't have to just keep doing this, and you don't have to keep running after you cross the finish line.
Wise words. Thank you, Dr. Fawcett. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I can't wait to have you on again. I know you have other books we need to talk about. One in the works too, right?
One in the works. It'll probably be out in the fall. I just started writing it last week.
Awesome. Can't wait. Remind our listeners where they can find you if they want to follow you.
Financial Success MD. My website's financialsuccessmd.com. If you just Googled Financial Success MD or Google my name, Dr. Cory Fawcett, you're going to get pages of places to go look. And feel free, if you have any questions about what you heard today, send me an email. I'm happy to answer things.
Thank you again. And I hope you have a great day. And I wish you the best of luck on your bicycle journey across the country. We look forward to seeing you on the other side. Thank you, Dr. Cory Fawcett, for sharing your experiences in real estate investing for busy medical professionals. Your journey is a testament to the power of smart investing. I love it. To our listeners, we hope today's episode has illuminated the path to financial freedom through multifamily real estate investing and inspired you to explore the possibilities it offers. For more insights and resources, be sure to follow Dr. Fawcett on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Financial Success MD and visit his website at www.financialsuccessmd.com. Don't forget to check out his books and courses for a deeper dive into automating your real estate investments. Until next time, this is Dr. Disha Spath with Finding Financial Freedom, reminding you that financial well-being starts with informed decisions. Thank you for listening. See you in the next episode, and stay frugal, y'all. Now, a final word from our sponsor. At Pearson Rabbits, they understand that life can change in an instant. It's hard to imagine that a sudden illness, injury, or catastrophic event could put you and your family in a devastating financial situation. Physician-founded and physician-focused, Pearson Rabbits builds human connections before they create quotes. Visit www.pearsonrabbits.com today and embark on your journey to safeguarding your future.
The content shared on this podcast should not be taken as individualized financial advice. We are here to share our knowledge and experiences, but it is crucial to consult with professionals such as accountants, financial advisors, or attorneys who can provide personalized guidance based on your specific needs.